Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and our year to shine. Tonight is going to be another talk about our book this month, Madly in Love with Me by Christine Arylo. And today's topic is going to be about, well, self-love, right? Because that's what we're talking about. But it's more of getting into the definition, the real definition, I should say, of what self-love is. Because remember, Christine told us that she did look up in the dictionary and that self-love had things like conceit, self-centeredness, vanity, narcissism, things like that. So she has actually come up with a pretty awesome definition. And I mean, if you hadn't read this before, I suppose an activity you could do would be to maybe come up with your own definition, like what does self-love mean to me? And what does it look like in my life too? That could be another thing. But I'm going to read you her definition, and this is just absolutely perfect. Self-love is the unconditional love and respect that you have for yourself. It is so deep, so solid, so unwavering that you choose only situations and relationships, including the one you have with yourself, that reflect that same unconditional love and respect. Yeah, I mean, that says it all, right? So she does change it so that if you're going to say it as an affirmation too, you can say it like this. Self-love is the unconditional love and respect I have for myself. That it's so deep, so solid, so unwavering, that I choose only situations and relationships, including the one I have with myself, that reflect that same unconditional love and respect. That's on page 47. If you want to maybe write it out on a card. I'm already thinking about, sorry, I have a tickle in my throat. I'm already thinking about maybe making one of my little affirmation decks with some of the things that I'm getting out of this book. Like some of those love truths that we talked about last time. And remember I told you that I was going to put little love notes in my lunchbox this month? I'm having so much fun with that because I made a whole bunch of them. I printed things off the internet, like I went for inspirational love related, like self-love related affirmations and sayings and stuff, and then I put in a couple of cute ones like for myself of things that I felt like I could say. And so I just folded them all up sort of like fortune cookie little fortunes, and I have them in a little dish, and then every morning I put one in my lunchbox. And so I don't even remember what I did initially when I put them together. And so today's lunchbox message said, I'm gonna mess it up, but it was something to the effect of, you've been criticizing yourself for far too long and that hasn't worked. So why not try to be nice to yourself and see what happens? Okay, so I really liked that. So we get into more of this section of the book, which is, again, exploring this relationship that you're having with yourself. Remember, we had some challenges about going on a date with yourself and really kind of like getting clear on who you are and what you need. We talked a lot about that last year in our Simple Abundance years. In our Simple Abundant year, I should say. So there are a few things, that she does say in these little special messages that she has for us. Things to the effect of making your relationship with yourself the best relationship in your life. Are you struggling with that, or are you kind of embracing this whole concept? I hope that you're doing okay with it. I'm definitely finding some challenge in this because in some respects when I read the book, I feel like it's written for somebody that's pretty much healed, that doesn't have trauma or scars that they're really struggling with. It could be more of like an average person who's maybe just questioning their worth and has doesn't have any like real concrete evidence of difficulties and sad times. So in some ways when I'm reading it, I'm thinking like, yeah, but but I'm working on it. I'm right there with you guys, and I know it's not easy. So she does actually have some things that are related to what kind of resistance you may have to this whole concept. And she calls it taking the self-care pulse, or self-love pulse, I should say. I'm so used to saying self-care. Self-love is not as common. So she does encourage us to do that through a bunch of different questions. And she also does admit that to us and say the same thing that I just said, that it's hard, that you might have a lot of excuses of why this is hard. So these are a couple of things that some people could say, like, sure, I choose self-love. What is self-love again? I choose self-love, but not very often. I choose self-love sometimes. I choose self-love often. I choose self-love always. So those, you could tell, are pretty, it's like on a progression, right? So the first one, number one, is that you're you're like, what is self-love again? All the way up to I choose self-love always, which would be a 5. So there were 5 different statements there. So that's a way of taking your self-love pulse. And she wants us to do that. There's even like a spot for you to write down your current number on page 53. And she says you may always fall somewhere in between too, which is totally okay. In that case, your self-love pulse might be like a 2.75 or 3.5 or whatever number feels right. This score is just an indicator of your self-love pulse. Why is that so hard to say? Right now, a quick mini check-in to see how much consistent, unconditional love you're giving to yourself. There will be time for more extensive pulse checks, and I'll discuss ways to raise your self-love pulse as we go. This book is full of ways to increase your power to choose love for yourself in any situation you face. Definitely. So then she takes us into an interesting little exercise. So she has a whole list of words that are very similar to self-love. So things like self-acceptance, self-care, self-compassion, self-esteem, self-empowerment. She calls it the 10 branches. And I did show you this little picture, the SelfLove Tree, when I was introducing the book. It's on page 55. And I want to let you know, she has been mentioning, if you're not reading along with the book, there's a website called chooseselflove.com, and she's put free things on there for us. So I guess this tree, I haven't gone to it yet, but this tree is actually on there, and I was thinking about printing it out and maybe decorating it, because what she has on here, if you can see it, is, so the self is in the middle with the heart, worth is on the bottom because that's the root of self-love, and then there's the branches. So it's all those things I said: self-care, self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-trust, self-esteem, self-compassion and forgiveness, and self-empowerment, self-expression, self-honor and respect, and self-pleasure. So she has you go through in some of these exercises in this section to figure out how your tree is doing. So are there some branches that are sort of dead or stilted or needing more than the others? Or are there other ones that are really fruitful? So there's a lot of questions, and I really like the word grow. We talked a lot last year in our Simple Abundance year about synonyms and with the garden, you know, as far as like our growing of authenticity and how sometimes we need to be repotted and things like that. Go back and watch some of those videos if you need a refresher. But just like a tree, we have to have those roots, like that self-worth, and then the branches are all a part of that. So there are a lot of exercises in this that I'd be just reading a lot if I was going to read every single thing in here. So I encourage you to look through the book in this section about how you can really look through and think about how your tree is doing. Don't despair, she says. every day that you make an emotional, mental, and spiritual effort to cultivate a loving, respectful relationship with yourself, a sort of investment in the health of your self-love tree, you will feel more loved and will receive more love, and you will become happier, freer, and more peaceful. Best of all, you can start feeling and experiencing these shifts right away. This self-love adventure is designed to give you big shifts, mid-sized shifts, and small but mighty shifts all along the way. You are ready to experience self-love at a higher level today. You are ready to regain the power to choose love in every situation you face, tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, forever. Great. If you continue on this adventure, take the dares, deepen your relationship with yourself, and take a stand for having only love and respect for yourself, then every day you will become stronger and more centered. And one day you will notice that your tree has rooted firmly planted in unconditional self-love soil. I like that. So then she talks about how can we receive more self-love. We talked about how if you give yourself more self-love, then you will also receive it. Have you heard the expression, people will love you as much as you let them love you? And if you have this standard of what you're worth and whether you may not deserve the love, even from yourself, then you're probably going to be accepting less than great love from other people. You may have to relearn what love is on all levels. So she talks about the fact that shifting towards this love, just like with the enough paradigm that we talked about in the last book that we were reading last month, there's a progression of this shift. One is just having awareness, and here we are, we're reading this book, right? 2, reflection. There's so much in this book that you could be journaling about, and I'm already doing a ton of it myself. 3, changing in the moment. So some of that's probably about the awareness too, right? Remember I said that if you almost had like a swear jar where you were telling the old story, you can catch yourself in the moment and say, wait a minute, that's not coming from a place of self-love. And then integration. That's with really any change, right? Integrating it into our lives. Over time, as you increase your ability to choose self-love, and as your branches and roots of self-love strengthen, you'll find yourself at the final stage of the shift, and that's the integration. There's a new self-loving pattern of thought or actions that exists, and they take the place of the self-sabotaging beliefs. Did you come up with some of those self-sabotaging things in that first section? I sure did, but I have to say, again, with the wounding and the traumas and things, I sort of feel like the self-sabotaging things are self-preservation for me. Because I asked you last time, like, what are you afraid of? I have a lot to be afraid of just because of my experiences that I've had. So it is like repatterning your brain in a lot of ways if you are like me and you do have a lot of fear about things. So throughout this book, we're going to be receiving tools and practices that will help us grow and even more love for ourselves. And as a result, we're going to love everyone around us even more too. And they'll probably be loving us more too because we'll be shining. We will be developing daring and fun and powerful ways to maintain our relationship with ourselves so that choosing love for ourselves becomes both first nature and second nature. Really the most natural choice you could ever make. Remember, you were born with love, she says. We were born with love for ourselves. You were born knowing exactly how to love yourself and others and how to source the love that you needed. Now it's about giving yourself permission to do what you were born to do, which is love. This is so perfect with our month of love. So I mentioned that she wants us to go through and sort of evaluate how our tree is doing. You know, which branches of the self-love tree are blooming, which are needing to grow and heal, and which are we totally unfamiliar with. Yeah, there might be some on that list that you were not really clear on. And so I think I'm going to get one of the full color printouts from that SelfLove.com. Is that what it was? ChooseSelfLove.com. I think I'm going to do that, and I'm going to really sit and contemplate all of those 10 branches. Yeah. Have an honest heart-to-heart with yourself and ask yourself important questions. Yeah, that's that me moment time. Before you get started, I want you to take, she says, like a snapshot of your capacity for choosing self-love as you understand it today, using the illustration of the tree. And I love that the next section is grow the love. So self-love tree and the 10 branches. So we're going to talk more about the tree. So maybe make a little artistic project with your tree. I'm thinking back to, I think it was in 11th grade in a sociology class. We were given a piece of paper and we were just told to draw a tree. And so all of our trees looked different. And the really cool thing was that our teacher told us, like, oh, if you have like a knot on your tree, or if your tree is dead, or if you have apples on your tree or something like that, it all had different meanings. It was almost like an oracle reading or something. So that was really neat. So that's what I think of when I think of a tree. But there's so much to this self-love journey, and I like the way she's starting us off with this, the roots of the self-worth leading to all the other self-love aspects. So I hope you do it. I hope you leave me a comment. Let me know how you're doing with the book so far. And I do think it really would be helpful to have this book if you haven't gotten it, because of all the questions and activities that are in there. I try to read as much as I can, but I also can't do like a 45-minute video every time. Thanks for watching for my long ones anyway. Love to you all, and I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.